Okay, this video is cleverly titled No Way in Hell, a deductive argument against eternal conscious torment. I just put this on Twitter, and every once in a while, I think when I post a tweet, it is worth making a short video about, and this is one of those cases. So let's take a look at the tweet itself. It is a deductive argument against the eternal conscious torment theoretical interpretation of posthumous judgment in Christian eschatology. How's that for a mouthful? Here's the first premise. Torturing people is evil. And I get an amen. Fortunately, most people today will accept premise one just based on their moral intuitions. They don't need an argument for it. If you do need an argument for it, then this argument will not satisfy you because I'm not going to defend the first premise. I'm just going to assume that we are on board with it. By the way, we could have put this more broadly. Torturing sentient creatures is evil, right? It's not just human beings. The same moral intuitions that would say it's wrong to torture human beings would presumably extend to other sentient creatures. Number two, God would not do anything evil. Can I get an amen? That does sound, again, something that we would know a priori by definition. If God is a maximally good being, if that's the kind of being we're talking about, God would not do anything evil. Premise three, which is really our first conclusion. Therefore, God would not torture people. So I think, again, this follows deductively from the first and second premises. So then we can move on to premise four. The eternal conscious torment theory of hell or of posthumous judgment entails that God tortures people. And then we get the conclusion. Therefore, the ECT theory is false. So uh, premise one and premise two, I think we can know a priori or intuitively, non-discursively. In other words, without arguing for them, we can know it's wrong. Premise two just follows analytically from what we mean by the concept of God. So premise three is in fact the conclusion of one and two. It just follows from them. And premise five follows from one through four. So really what you have to then conclude is the only thing that needs to be defended is premise four. The eternal conscious torment theory of hell entails that God tortures people. And this is not, in fact, hard to demonstrate. It, in fact, itself just follows from what ECT proposes, because the eternal conscious torment theory of hell proposes that God punishes people through eternal conscious torment. And by definition, to inflict severe mental and or physical suffering or anguish on a person for punitive measure is by definition torture. It is to torture them. So by definition, eternal conscious torment entails that God is torturing people. The only way that a person might find to try to escape the conclusion of premise four is by saying in the C.S. Lewis style, well, God doesn't torture people. In fact, people torture themselves. The gates of hell are locked on the inside. There, we've dealt with the problem. That does not deal with the problem at all, in fact, because nonetheless, on the eternal conscious torment view, interpreted through the grid of C.S. Lewis, you are still affirming that eternal conscious torment is God torturing people or punishing them forever through torment. Yes, their torment on the C.S. Lewis view is self-inflicted, but it is still God's punishment of them. God is appropriating their own self-inflicted torment as the mode by which he punishes them. So he is appropriating their self-inflicted torment as his mode of torturing them. You could say that God has outsourced the torture to the very people who have been damned. They are the self-torturers, and God thereby tortures them through their own self-inflicted torture. So God is still torturing people through those people themselves. And since God would never torture people, including by appropriating their self inflicted torment, it follows that ECT theory is indeed false.